Hello everyone, welcome to the first part of the bumblebee and flower tutorial. I'll quickly show you. I've got a picture on my pad. I'm going to pop the picture up in the corner of the screen. This is what we are doing. Now we're only doing the flower and the bumblebee, so don't worry about the background and everything. That's what we're going to be doing. I will pop it up on the screen for you. Well, now I'm hoping this is going to be a quick tutorial, but you never do know. So I'm going to call this part 1. There may be a part 2, there may not, depending on how we get on. I am using Faber-Castell Polychromos pencils today. And this is white pastel matte. Now I have a pad of pastel matte that has the glassine sheets in between, but you can buy small pads, you can buy big pads. I'll leave the link down below for you for the pastel matte paper. And yeah, let's get on. Now I'm going to start by doing the central part, which does look quite intricate, but it's okay, don't panic. I'm going to, before I do anything else, lighten up those pencil lines. I have provided the line art for you. That should be down below in the description as well. I also popped that on the community page. Now, this is just graphite pencil that I've used on the line art. And I do have a video of how to transfer your line art. If you've not seen that, go and give that a watch. I'm just using my kneadable eraser to make it a bit soft because it's not been used in a while. And I am just going to lighten up these lines on this picture by dabbing. Sometimes I like to do this, roll it into a bit of a sausage and roll it over the picture like this. It's going to wobble my camera. That will also lighten the lines up. You don't want to worry too much. You just don't want lots of, obviously, dark lines showing through. So just lighten them up as best you can. Doesn't matter so much on the bumblebee because he's quite dark. Obviously he's got yellow bits, but his body's quite dark anyway. But this central part of this flower is lovely yellow tones, so we don't want the dark lines showing through there. So I think that will do for now. Now to begin this, we are going to, you can see the little shapes that are in there. I'm hoping you can see the little shapes that are in there. They're just a few odd shapes really, and they're going to ultimately be the shadows of the central part of this flower. So what we're going to do to start, I need a piece of glassine because what I don't want to do is lean on this paper and get marks everywhere. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we are going to add a few of these darker spots in so we can see where we're going. Now this is, let's have a look, Sanguine. Okay, Faber-Castell 188. Okay, and it's a lovely, almost like a burnt orange colour. And what we're going to do is we are just going to mark in some of these darker shapes that we've got in here. Now, not too much pressure. That's the bee's leg there. And just in between here, we have got some dark shapes. So I'm just literally, is my camera wobbling? I think it is. Going to just mark in some of those dark shapes there. Maybe if I get my board forward a little bit. I'm not quite sure why my camera's wobbling so much. Yeah, so we're just going to add some of these dark shapes in really. It doesn't have to be exact. In between, I might have to fix this camera elsewhere. But we are just going to put some darker marks between these little shapes that we've got here. And that's just going to create some shadow. Now there's quite a bit more of this down here. So we'll just not pressing too hard, real light touch at the moment. And we're just going to put some darker lines between there, and then we're going to come between some of these little markings that we've got on here, and we're going to put some darker marks in between those as well. And it's just going to give the idea that there's some shadows and things going on between there. Up this side part as well, there's quite a few marks going up there. Not so much at the top, it's more this part here, the central part here, and there's a few bits here, and just under the bumblebee's body here. So I mean, that really should do it, to be honest. That's all we need. Now I'm going to change now to, I've got a cadmium yellow here. This is number 108, and I'm just going to come in over the top of those shadows, and we are going to add, with a little bit more pressure, the cadmium yellow. So it's kind of blending the two colours together. I think I'm going to have to move this camera, guys, before I carry on, because it's going to drive me bananas. Let's just do this bit and then I'll shift it. So just over the top of the sanguine, with a little bit more pressure, coming over with the cad yellow, and it's going to kind of blend the two colours together there. Hope that made sense. And I'm going to pause the video at this point, and I'm going to move this camera because it clearly isn't happy on this table. So that's what we should have at that point. Okay, and we're coming back with this in a moment, but for now that's what we should have there. I'm just going to pause, and I'm going to move the camera so that it's not wobbling. Okay, so I moved the camera and I lost some audio, so I am now adding a voiceover. Honestly, gremlins. We are now going to be using cream, which is number 102. We are just going to fill in the space between the previous colours. So using light pressure, just work around and fill in the white space, covering all of it with the cream colour. So just work your way around, filling in any white space left that you can see. Don't be too heavy-handed, just use a light pressure here. I'm now using dark cadmium yellow, which is number 108. And we're going to add some darker shadows, and we're just going to work around those shapes that we put in before with the sanguine colour. We're not aiming to cover all of the cream up. What this will do is it will add some depth to the centre of the flower, give you some slight darker shadows. Now, coming back in with the cadmium yellow, and we will start to gently blend everything together. So using light pressure, work around the centre in small circular motions, gently blending everything together. Okay, so you should now have something that looks pretty similar to mine. Okay, now we're using dark cadmium orange, which is number 115. And again, we're going to lightly work around the darker shapes, adding a little of this to each. We're also going to add some to the base here, where there's more colour and shadows. So it's a bit darker at the base there. This is going to add just a touch more colour and give us just a few more shadows. We're now going to come back in with the cream, which is number 102. And we're going to use a slightly firmer pressure now to blend and burnish all of those colours together. So small circular movements again, but with a slightly firmer pressure. We're just aiming to blend all of those colours nice and even. Just keep going until you're happy that everything is blended in. And then finally, with sanguine, which is number 188, we're going to add some darker marks anywhere that you can see shadows on the reference picture. So again, down at the base here. We don't want to add too much of this because it is quite dark, but anywhere that you can see a little bit of shadow, we want to add this in. So hopefully yours is now looking something like mine. Just keep going until you're happy that you've got enough shadow in there. We're going to be working on the petals now. So we're now going to work on the petals of the flower. And the reason we're leaving the bee until last is because we want him to be on top with his little fuzzy body, and we would lose that detail if we added him now. So we will begin the petals first. I am just lightening up my line work here, and if you feel yours is too dark, then lighten it up now. I'm just using a kneadable eraser. If you don't have a kneadable eraser, just use a normal eraser just to lighten those lines up a little bit. Just coming in with the normal eraser to lighten them a little bit more. I think my kneadable eraser has seen better days. Be careful not to raise them completely because you still want to be able to see them. Don't worry so much about the bee because he's fairly dark anyway, so really just the petals. I'm also not too worried about the stem of the flower because that's fairly dark too. So they're just lightening everything up there. That's much better. So to start these petals, we're going to use coral, which is number 131, to start off. And as you can see, the petals consist of lighter areas where the petals are slightly curled over at the edges. The big one isn't curled, but it still is lighter here. And there are a few more light edges here and here. These very small back petals are also quite light. And we're going to work in the direction of each petal. So with our coral, 131, and with light pressure, we're going to start adding colour on the curled parts of the flower, the lighter parts of the petals. Just follow the direction and fill in that section. Find the next and just repeat the process, making sure that you follow the direction of each petal. The main thing to remember is just light pressure and follow the direction and the curve each petal. So some areas are going to be lighter. Just keep looking back at your reference photo, and anywhere that looks lighter, add the coral. So just continue round, adding all your light parts in. Now this petal here it's got almost a stripy look to it, so just follow the direction of the petal, adding in the lighter stripes. There's a little section here that's a little bit darker, so we're going to leave that. Top of this petal with a little touch lighter. In the bottom, just along the edge here. And the very bottom part of the large petal. is a little bit lighter. So we're just adding the coral on the very end of that large petal. So I think that's all the lighter parts finished, and hopefully you've got something that looks similar. Now on the main part of each petal, we're going to be using dark cadmium orange, which is number 115. And we're basically going to repeat the process. We're going to add a light pressure and we're going to cover the main dark areas of each petal, remembering to still follow the direction of each one. And what we're going to do with this flower is we're just going to add more and more layers of colour, and then we'll blend them all together towards the end to get the perfect red colour for our flower. Really, we want to make sure the white of the paper is gone, but we're still keeping the pressure very light. And we're just going to repeat this around with each petal. Okay, so we're just going to carry on around, putting down a nice even layer till we get right round to where the bumblebee is. Same for this petal. Continue working your way around each petal, light pressure. Okay, so with the back petals here, I'm going to go even lighter in pressure because it's not as dark in colour as the rest of the petals. And this is also going to be the case with the two smaller back petals there. On this larger petal, we can go a little bit darker if you feel you need to. We want them all pretty much even. Now this petal here is almost shell-shaped. So follow the direction of the curves. And you don't need a very sharp pencil to do this layering. In fact, it's better if it's quite flat. If you look at mine, on the end it's quite flat, and that's kind of good for the shading process. Just follow the direction of the petal again. Like I said, this one is almost shell-shaped. Just following the direction of the curves here. So these back petals here are going to be a bit lighter pressure. Going up to, but not over, the coral pink that we've put down. And again, follow the direction of the inside of this curved petal. And this one is a little bit darker in the centre, so a bit more pressure on there. And then make it lighter as we go out towards the edge. Following the curves again. So this little back petal here, lighter pressure, because if you look at the reference photo, it's not quite as dark as the rest of the petals. Same thing with this one here. Okay, now using ivory, which is number 100, we're now going to blend over the coral the lighter parts of the flower. So again, using medium pressure in the direction of the petals, we're just going to go over each section, blending the two colours together. So anywhere you've put the coral down, we're going to go over the top and add the ivory. Now, light pressure again, we don't want to completely flatten the tooth of the paper here, so be careful not to use heavy pressure. Just carry on working your way around, covering all the parts of the flower that we previously put the coral pink down on. Got a little bit on this edge here. On the top of this curved edge, we've got some more, so add some more ivory there. This petal's really quite light, so we want to add plenty all over this petal. Tiny touch on the edge of this one. Tiny bit here. Okay, so you should have covered all your coral pink now. You should have something that looks like this. Now for the main part of the petals, we are going to add another layer. So we're going to be using pale geranium late, which is number 121. And we're going to add this to all the main parts that we, basically where we didn't just put the ivory, so all the previous dark sections. And we're just going to layer this colour over the top. And the mix of the two colours will give us the lovely red colour that we're looking for this flower. So again, using light pressure, add a layer of the geranium lake. We're not blending it all together here, we're just adding another layer of colour. So again, remember to follow the direction of each petal. And this is what I love about coloured pencils, is the fact that you can layer to make new colours, you know. We're covering more of the tooth of the paper, but we're not completely flattening it because we've got more layers yet to add. So go right up to the ivory edge. or where we've just laid the ivory down, should I say. Now we'll show you in a second what would happen if we just used the Geranium Lake colour on its own without the underlayer. Get a spare piece of paper here and I'll show you. So just on its own you can see the difference, and it is not the right colour at all. Nothing like the colour of the flower we need, so that's why we're layering. It would be definitely too dark for this flower. As you can see, layering different colours together can really help you to get the perfect colour that you're looking for. So just continue around in the same way on each petal on the darkest areas that we've already laid the colour down. As we did before, we want to use lighter pressure. We still need the colour, but we want to use lighter pressure because overall this petal that's behind is much lighter. So just carry on layering this colour on top, remembering to follow the direction of each one. But these two are more or less the same colour, so you're not really going to see much of a divide between these two. If you feel it needs to be a little bit darker, you can add more pressure. Just don't want to flatten the tooth of the paper at this point because we've got a few more layers to put on. So just be wary of that. And we're going to come up to this top one, which is just a bit darker, almost in the middle bit. And again, lighter pressure, should I say, on this smaller petal at the back here. And now we've got this one that is almost a stripy appearance, this petal. So add that detail in too. Just add darker colours where you can see the almost stripy look. And that's our second layer done. Now we're going to take dark cadmium orange, which is number 115, and using medium pressure and circular motions this time, we are going to blend the colours together. So all of the darker areas where we've just laid the 2 layers of colour down, we are now using another colour to blend those together. Just remember, we're blending, we're not flattening the tooth. So again, at this point, you're aiming to blend the colours together, but we're not flattening the tooth of the paper because we do still have a few details to put on these petals. So I am just going to work my way around the flower, blending in each petal as we go. So there we go, that's the colours somewhat blended together. Now as you can see, we can still see the tooth of the paper showing through. We've still got fine details to add to the petals, but it should now look like this. And now we need to add some darker areas. So taking Sanguine number 188, we're going to add some darker areas to the base of this petal and any area of darker shadowing. So the base of the petals and some of the overlaps. Like here between the petals. It's a slightly darker edge here. And between here. And on the base of this one. So anywhere where you see shadows on the reference photo, we're going to add the darker colour. More on the base of this one. And a little touch here. Okay, so finally taking Coral, which is number 131, we are now going to blend the whole flower petal, work our way around petal by petal, and this will now blend the colour, but it will also somewhat flatten the tooth of the paper and make everything smooth. So you want a firm, even pressure when you're doing this. Be careful not to damage the paper by pressing too hard. Also, use the same technique over the lighter parts with the same coral pencil. So we're going to now go over the lighter parts of petals as well. Just want to show you before we finish that, we are going to actually add a lighter pencil in places after this as a highlight colour. This will be the final blend, and then we can also add the spots and blemishes by adding a lighter area and then detail that with a slice tool. So there's lots of different ways to add the details, and I will show you that once we have blended the main flower petals together. You could also use a paper stump to blend if you didn't want to add any more colour to the area, but I wanted to add the pink. But here's what that would look like. I'll use this up on this petal and show you here, so you can see the difference. Alright guys, before this one gets too long, I think we're going to call this part 1, and please come back for part 2. See you soon.